Hi, pals. Welcome to From Page to Screen. If this is your first time, this is where I read a story, I watch as many screen adaptations as I can find, and then I compare them to see how just good those screen adaptations really are, and if they are worth your time. In our first look at Dickens' most famous holiday story, we shined a light on some animated versions, then we were captivated by the women that took on the miserly role, and last year, we went around with Christmas Future to see what the TV specials had in store for us. Today, the ghost of Christmas Past has graced our presence and wants to take us on a trip down memory lane to find the earliest adaptations. That's right, today we're looking at the silent film era. The format is simple. I tell you what was amazing and what had me declaring. There is one change. I used to rank the adaptations, at first from going from worst to best, and then the tiered ranking. I'm just doing away with all the ranking stuff. The fact of the matter is, I don't feel like it anymore. I'll still say, if it's still worth watching, if it's worth your time, but the ranking is done for this and future page to screens. So I'm just strictly going to go chronologically from here on out. By now, I'm sure most adults know how the story goes. There's a rich guy, he's a massive asshole, he's visited by some otherworldly spirits to try to whip him into shape, or else he shall suffer the consequences. If you're looking for a more in-depth summary, then hitch a ride with Past to the 2022 installment for the 3-minute download. The link, along with all of my previous looks at A Christmas Carol, will be in the description below. So it's time to get out the paper mache and, of course, your trusty eggnog. Now make those props and let's get started. For our first one, we're going back over 100 years. And actually, not a single one today is less than 100. Like, the first one with sound is almost 100, but not quite. Yeah. The point is, we're going back to 1901 for the first screen adaptation of A Christmas Carol ever, at least that I'm aware of. It's 1901's Scrooge or Marley's Ghost. Now, why is it titled like that? Well, the second half is probably because Marley is the only ghost we see. Most of the time this happens, I'm kind of annoyed. Even if I do love Carrie Fisher, it does annoy me. However, the original runtime is about 6 minutes with only about 3.5 minutes surviving, and those 3.5 minutes tell most of the story. There is another upload of this version where it's about 5 minutes. Maybe whoever played that one had it going at a slower rate, but the one on the British Film Institute's YouTube channel is 3.5 minutes. Whether 3.5 or 5 minutes, it doesn't leave a lot of time to show every little thing. So introducing every single ghost would have cut into the time they had, and they were short on that. So they get a pass. One thing about Marley, though, this is him. No hate to the costume, but it is confusing. It's literally just a guy in a bedsheet or a length of white broadcloth over him. But you gotta work with what you have, and with an extremely tight budget. I'm sure that series 1 of the original run of Doctor Who had a bigger production budget. So, okay. And they utilized some snazzy effects that would have been quite expensive, as it would have required using more film stock to do it. This adaptation may not have even used a full reel for it. I can't remember when the 16-minute reel became the standard, but regardless, it would still have required 2 to do the effects. Even if those effects only take up a minute of film time altogether, even if it's a very short period of time, you still need 2 reels to do it. And film, as I've said many times before, is expensive. I will be talking about how some of these effects were done in an abridged history video I'm working on about green screen technology, because it is fascinating. But that's a long ways down the road. I do have plans. How quickly they come to fruition, only time will tell. But let's keep going with this one. all things considered, they do fit quite a bit into this, and it didn't feel rushed. Like, Scrooge and Bob had their little tete-a-tete at the office, and Scrooge, gets freaked out by Marley's early haunting. We get a little of the school days and Belle, and the present-day Christmas parties where people mock him at their toasts, though at least one of them, they're not shown mocking him, and the other, it's kind of hard to tell. And then Scrooge is crying over his gravestone. And then that's it. The rest didn't survive. Maybe there's a preserved copy out there somewhere with the full thing, but at this point, that's all we got. People might wonder about Tiny Tim's story because it is a big part of the plot, and I think it's mostly on what didn't survive. We get some stuff that looks like it could be alluding to his fate, but it also looks like Scrooge could be reacting to the toast. I'm not 100% sure. Regardless, there's a title card for Christmas Future for that section, and it does state the death of Tiny Tim will happen in that bit. At that point, it is explicit that that part of the story is included in at least that section. If only it survived. Let's sigh. But looking past the high school production feel of some of the costume and props, said with love, not derision, what survived is really good. Is some of the acting a little over the top? Maybe, but it's 1901. It's been, a decade at best since movies were a thing at this point. And as I said in my Oliver Twist adaptations, most people at this time were more used to acting on stage, where, within reason, you go big or you go home in your performance for the entire audience to see and hear you. Another instance of it gets a pass for this. It being the first ever adaptation that I'm aware of, I think everyone should give it a watch. I mean, depending on what upload you find, it's 5 minutes out of your day, tops. I think everybody can spare that much time for some enjoyment in this Dickensian nightmare of a world. The next adaptation was the 1908 version. However, it's been lost to time. It's another one of those things where hopefully a reel of it is just hiding in somebody's attic and it just hasn't been found, but for now it's sadly lost. Instead, we're going to jump ahead 2 years to the 1910 adaptation of A Christmas Carol. Thomas Edison's production team is at it again for this 13-minute version of the story. And they made some interesting changes. One, we see Scrooge die, which is weird. I mean, his housemaid is there, but otherwise he's alone. As I've said in past installments, the stuff with Christmas Future is that much of it is shrouded in the vast unknowing of the universe. The reader can take an intuitive leap and assume that everything we're seeing about some random dead guy that nobody liked is about Scrooge, but we don't know for certain until we see his gravestone. And in this, we see him die before we reach the gravestone. Why? Why take away the big reveal? It was just... eh? And then Scrooge's nephew, Fred, he's married in the book, but here it appears he isn't. It seems like he's looking to get engaged, and her family is kind of against it because he's not exactly a rich guy. And this is one of those things, well, it's a little weird. It shouldn't hurt things overall. It should mostly only change some of the dynamics of all the stuff that we see with Fred. And luckily, we had writers on this project that accounted for those changes, unlike some adaptations that made changes to things that didn't adjust stuff later on to reflect you. Looking at you, Oliver Twist, 1933. With Fred's stuff during the present section of the visit, Scrooge is starting to melt, and then that's when he decides he's going to give Fred some money to help him get his girl. And he does follow through on this, and then makes him a partner in the business. I mean, none of this happens in the book. He just goes for dinner on Christmas, and he was invited, Meh. But as far as changes to the plot go, I've seen worse, and they actually followed through on the setup. So, I do have some appreciation for it. However, this change does feed into something else in the movie, and I don't think it's as intense as what they removed. This big change had me going, I'm sorry, what? There was no Tiny Tim. Like, maybe he was one of Bob's kids, but it's not obvious, and none of his plotline is included. Tiny Tim's illness and death are the big catalyst for Scrooge to change his ways, for him to change his mind on his thoughts with the workhouses and the orphanages and all of that. Well, it's obvious that they used Fred's issue as this kind of kickoff for Scrooge's heart to grow 3 sizes. If he didn't care about his nephew's plight before, it wouldn't be the only thing to change him and want to do all these things for everybody, because he does send stuff to Bob's on Christmas. He even shows up there on Christmas Day with good tidings along with Fred. Okay, he does the angry act when he first gets there, but he drops it quickly. And he also donates some money to the guy that came in looking for donations at the beginning, since they kept that in. But Fred's issues alone, I don't think they'd be enough for him to just completely do a flip. Quiet phone. I don't think those changes would be enough to make him do a flip on such a deeply held core belief. He has to see something truly, truly heartbreaking. And the death of a child is that. It is that. With Fred's issues, he knew about them for a while, but he didn't know, he didn't take the time to learn about Bob's life. So he wouldn't have known about Bob's family problems. He wouldn't have known about Tiny Tim. And so these things would have just hit harder, like, oh wait, I'm sorry, what's happening? And like, that's why it's that bigger push. That's why. And he's learned something new, and he's like, well, fuck me. Like, I can see some people might argue that seeing his breakup with Belle might be what helps him turn, like, because he probably he does hold some regret for what happened between him and Belle. But their issue was the opposite to Fred's. I mean, he loved money more than he loved her, whereas Fred doesn't give a shit about money to the same degree as Scrooge does. And even so, Belle alone was never enough for that character to change. Not in the past, not in the present. And it just... I still don't think that the combo of Belle and Fred would be enough for that deeply held conviction to just do a 180. It took a few different things, with the biggest being Tiny Tim. So excluding that big element in favor of a lesser made-up one just doesn't sit right. I mean, okay, what he does is good, right? But it didn't have the same heart as the original text. Now, for what they did, I enjoyed the performances. It was entertaining. So if you're looking for a good time and that alone, then sure, take a look. If you're looking for something that's a little more accurate, then maybe give this one a miss, you know? Our initial banter with Christmas past is over now, and we are whisked away to see a lonely child at their desk, where we must now stop and take a look at Scrooge from 1913. Although if you were American, you had to wait until 1926 and it was called Old Scrooge. This one starts out with a little bit of background about Dickens's life. It was only a few minutes, but I really hate when they do that. I mean, okay, if it's pertinent to the story, okay, but it's not for this one. Maybe Oliver Twist or one of his other stories, but not for A Christmas Carol. It just, it doesn't fit. And really, it didn't get much better from there for me. First off, Scrooge looks almost homeless. Like, he's disheveled, which it doesn't make sense. He may be a miser, but he's also a business owner that's supposed to come off as somewhat respectable and put together in the community. I mean, okay, people don't like him, but he looks put together, right? Like, this is an undercover boss. He doesn't need to look like that. And maybe the age of the film or the lighting or something kind of like compounded the look of things. I don't know, but it just didn't feel right visually. And when it's a silent film, the visuals are paramount to anything else. In modern filmmaking, music and sound are such a huge component to the experience. But in the 1910s, not so much. I mean, there may be a piano player or a record playing alongside the film by this point, like playing music. I can't remember when that was brought in. And it might not even be at every cinema you go to. But overall, it wasn't the main part of the experience. And then, they have kids throwing snowballs at him. Okay, they're showing people don't like him in the community. That's fine, but it was still a little weird. Like, most people just ignored him. They're just like, they see him on the street and they just kind of like give him a wide berth or just like don't even really acknowledge him at all for the most part. I mean, some people might give a nod, but that's about it. It was kind of weird for the opening of the actual story. And then there was this little bit. A poor woman comes in asking for alms, and he replies with the stuff that he says to the two men asking for donations in the book. The workhouses, the prisons, all that stuff. I was like, oh, okay. Changing to a woman, very progressive for 1913. Replacing men's characters that really could be anybody with a woman. Oh, okay, cool. No, not a replacement, just a redundant addition, because they also had the donation guys come in with a wash, rinse, repeat of what he told the poor beggar woman. Why? 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 Again, film was precious at this time. Very expensive. I cannot reiterate this enough. So, not counting any extra reels needed for the visual effects, this is about a 3-reeler. Because I think by now we're getting into the 14 to 16 minutes long. I can't remember if 16-minute reels were now the standard length or not. But at the very least, it was that range. And this movie is 40 minutes long. You didn't have the space for new scenes that weren't in the original that are just rehashing what we've already been or will be shown, especially when you add in other erroneous things and then you cut stuff that's actually in the original story that you set up and then just leave dangling. Fred comes to invite him for dinner. Scrooge says no, as he does, and then we don't see the party in Christmas present section. Just jumps straight to Christmas Future after Bob's Family Stuff, where they also cut out Tiny Tim's stuff from Christmas Future after setting it up in Christmas Present. What? And then to add to that, they don't even follow through with anything with the beggar woman or the donation guys. We do not see Scrooge helping them at all. So they added extra shit in to not give us him righting those wrongs after a spooky encounter. And then we have Marley's part. I don't know if Scrooge's office is meant to be his home in this one. I mean, I'm pretty sure it is. It looks like he's settling in for the night there. So maybe it's not the only one to do that. So okay, but that means we don't get the haunting in the same way. Like, there's the early wigging out before he's gonna, go count his money, and then he just falls asleep in front of the fire. There was no real haunting. Now, this could infer that Scrooge is just dreaming as some do. So I'll give it this. That's not a bad take. Not everything with this one is terrible. It just mostly is. But this is Marley. And the terrible things in his costume, again, we do not hate on the quality of props and costumes of this era. Loving chuckle, yes. Hating on them, no. The terrible thing is how it's played out. And I don't mean Scrooge's over-the-top acting again, that's the era, but it's pretty much, hey, I'm Marley. But he died 7 years ago. Fine, I was Marley. Believe me now? Oh, okay, sure. A special shout out to the title cards, and they made it so the words that were supposed to be stressed are underlined, which is awesome when you don't have sound and you can't hear inflection. Yeah. I don't remember that in other silent films that I've seen, but I could be having a brain fart. So regardless, it's an awesome feature. But the awesomeness of that doesn't take away from the fact that that's all it took to convince the highly skeptical Scrooge that this was really Marley's ghost. I mean, he's also the only ghost we get. 40 minutes! You have the time to have all the ghosts if you didn't have the first half be an extended cut of the introduction of the story after talking about Dickens. 5, 15 minutes, you get a pass on having one ghost. 40, you do not. And rewinding a bit, part of that extended cut intro included Tiny Tim accompanying Bob on the walk to work. This has happened in other versions I've looked at, but I didn't really get into that during them because of the other stuff I wanted to talk about. No, Bob, you me, we need to have a chit chat. You're shown as this amazing dad in the book, and then we get this happening? But he's spending time with his sickly son. That's good, isn't it? Yes, yes, he is. But, Bob, you and me, getting real here. How does Tiny Tim get home? This isn't Charmed. He's not orbiting everywhere. He's not a white lighter. No, 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 no. Bob, you brought your sickly, crippled son on the journey to your work, and then you sent him home by himself in Victorian London. It's not a war zone or anything, but he is a super vulnerable kid. How is this responsible parenting? Like, at least have one of your older kids come with you. I don't know, Peter. He's old enough to start an apprenticeship right after Christmas. He's old enough to make sure his brother gets home safe. Like, what were you doing? So this one was this weird mashup of accurate and highly inaccurate, where the inaccuracies and changes, they aren't outweighed by anything, even what is accurate. Is this the worst one I've ever seen? No, but as some might say, it isn't peak. It is a piece of cinema history, so watch it if you're interested in that side of it, but otherwise, I don't know, watch an episode or two of your favorite TV show instead. It's about the same length of time. Luckily, Past lets us see the boy's sister come in to happily bring him home alongside the 1914 version of A Christmas Carol. This one is 23 minutes, but unfortunately, I could only find a video that's about 2 minutes of it on BFI's YouTube channel. I don't know if you'd have more access to a longer version if you were in the UK and could see it, since their website only has stuff for the UK. Like, literally only the UK. VPNs are blocked. So it's just the bit was present that I could see. The visuals? Yes! Hallelujah! It fit the book description. Okay, he didn't have a torch. But it was really nice. He doesn't always have a torch in the movie adaptations. Okay, fine. But it's even possible that they made his robe green. Now, I don't know, because it's obviously filmed in black and white, but I'm gonna keep it in my personal headcanon. They did right by the characterization. I mean, alright, the room wasn't decorated or anything in his intro, but that seems to be pretty standard for this era when we actually do get multiple ghosts. So, okay. Unlike other adaptations from this time, we get to actually see more than just the toast at Scrooge's nephew's party. They're playing games, like happens in the book, and Scrooge has a smile on his face, and he's having fun and getting into it, and then the negative reaction to the toast ruins it. But again, it's amazing that they actually kept it in, like with these shorter versions that tends to get cut. And then they whoosh off to Bob's, and I'm not sure if he's upset because of the discussion about Tiny Tim or if it's Mrs. Cratchit's comments during the toast, but Scrooge does get upset. And that's where it cuts off. And no, this isn't a case of, well, you see, that's all that survived, so that's all we have. It's literally in the uploads title that it's just an extract. But this one was really good from what I had access to. I have high hopes that it would actually do justice to the original text. And if you can find it or have access to the full version, do it. Then let me know where you found it, if at least if it wasn't through BFI. Because kinda wanna see it. I'd also love to see The Right to Be Happy from 1916, which is another adaptation of the story. However, it too is lost to the mists of time. So instead, we'll just push the desks aside, grab our partners for Sir Roger de Coverley, as we explore 1922's Scrooge. This one made some different choices. Lots of cuts of things that we don't normally see cut. I mean, with the silent films, we've seen Tiny Tim cut before, and he is cut in this one, and I still think it's so fucking weird. I mean, Bob and his family are there, but there's no sickly little Timmy. They cut all the normal stuff with Christmas past, and instead, it looks like he's working with Marley, and that's all we see of his past in that section. It's really odd. Really odd. I usually like to see the fun stuff. That's really a part of seeing his past. Reminding him that when he was much younger, he actually took the time to enjoy himself during the holiday season, and then he started to become a douche. Christmas present didn't get a proper intro. We're with past, and then a title card comes up saying, yeah, then he was taken to Bob's, and suddenly it's a different ghost. At least future kind of gets their intro. I mean, there's no ignorance and want, nothing crazy, but it's close enough to the book because he comes in, like past leaves, and he just kind of comes in all creepy like. It's actually pretty good. It's just weird for me to say about anything with future because usually I have complaints about future. This one has a runtime of 15 to 20 minutes, depending on the speed you're playing the reel at. The version I found was 10 minutes long, but there weren't any weird blips in the film itself where it looked like some of the physical film could have been cut away due to extreme damage or anything. So I don't know why it was so much shorter than it was supposed to be. I don't know. The 15 to 20 minutes, it's what I read. So maybe somebody got their info wrong, and maybe somebody did cut out extremely damaged sections and was able to splice what survived back together so it wasn't noticeable. I don't know. Maybe that's why certain things didn't show up in the one I saw, but at the same time, I doubt all of the Tiny Tim scenes would have been damaged that badly, and in film preservation, the point is to keep as much as possible. So they wouldn't just take out random sections because other parts of the film couldn't be salvaged that gave context to what happens later on. Plus, there's the insertion of the scene with... It looks like Marley in the Christmas Past section, so I think it was intentional writing and directing choices for whatever reason. I will say, I like the presentations of the ghosts. For whatever reason, so many adaptations put Past in a hooded robe that looks like a monk should be wearing the damn thing. And it's not quite the look. Why? I wish I knew. But otherwise, they're looking pretty good. Past has some leafy crops. Present pretty much looks like he should, straight out of the book. And for once, I'm ecstatic about future. I mean, you don't see the face, no talking. I mean, granted, it's a silent film, but still, everything about this Christmas future ghost is yes. And Marley? Oh, yes. It was well done. Though they did a weird thing with his nose, I don't quite get. Either it's a lot of makeup on his nose for some weird reason, or he's wearing a prosthetic. I ask again, why? No idea. But yeah. Unless maybe they're trying to say like it rotted off. I don't know. Christmas Day and Boxing Day are how they go in the book as well, so that's also really nice. Even though there were a lot of weird things cut from this one, including Tiny Tim, which normally would annoy me, I felt quite satisfied after watching this. I mean, could be possibly in part they didn't try to wrap up anything that hadn't been set up solely because it was the original story. They just cut it out, period, end of. I mean, I will always think it's weird when Tiny Tim is cut out because it's such a huge catalyst in the story for us to see Scrooge's heart soften and have that desire beyond his own selfishness to change. And in this one, it kind of does feel like it's mainly his own personal desires that fuel the change. Granted, not the worst thing, but still a little weird since, well, A Christmas Carol without Tiny Tim doesn't feel 100% right. Regardless, though, this is the best one I've watched this year. I mean, okay, 1914, I didn't get to watch the whole thing, but like for the whole ones, it kept enough of the original story to still feel okay and entertained, and the changes they made rippled through the rest of the movie. It's like, things didn't feel out of place in this specific adaptation. But now our partner sadly walks away as we reflect on the 1923 adaptation of the story. And why are they sad? Because we have gone from one extreme to another. Is everything terrible with this one? No, no. Future's costume in like the first couple seconds of the entrance was great, right? It's tough to see them for most of the time. That could just be because of the age or maybe preservation of the film, but I don't know. But when you can see the ghost, it's good. Like at least visually, they didn't cut a lot of weird stuff. I mean, there's no Tiny Tim in this one again, which, I mean, 1920s, what you doing? I really don't understand, but, Fred and Scrooge are a little more intense, Scrooge more so. Emotions seem to be more heated in that part, and that in itself isn't bad. Um, because again, yeah, okay, film's been around a little bit longer and people are more used to, a little more used to not necessarily having to be as big as you would on stage and whatnot. But it's still, most of the acting is on stage, and so you gotta be a little bigger. And so that's not entirely terrible that they're a little more like intense in their feelings. But intensity, that intensity leads to this. What is with that? Him yelling something like, ah, humbug, that's good enough. Like, he doesn't need to physically attack the kid. Not even 2019 Scrooge in like the dark gothic version where you would expect more dark and gloomy and like terrible things to happen. Not even in that one does he go and like attack people. He just makes note and is like, I'm going to write my local counselor or whatever. Like, that's all he does. And in this one, he's just like, I'm gonna like slap you around. Like, what the fuck? And then they didn't have the follow through with the charity donation guy after Christmas Day and the change. Like, set up, follow through. Man, the ghosts are interesting. Okay, Marley is actually pretty good in his costuming, but there was no haunting. That is one of the best parts of the story. Why? Instead, they inserted a scene where Fred tells his wife and friends that, oh no, Uncle Scrooge, he's not coming to dinner tomorrow. Oh no. That doesn't exist in the book. I would have rather have had the haunting than had that, to be honest. But in past, he's barely taller than the table, and present looks and feels more like Father Christmas, and it's just, eh. And my praise of Christmas Future is short-lived. The most egregious thing they do. No, I need a stiffener. 1 sec. Hmm. Oh, okay. This is something I didn't think I'd have to worry about in a silent film. A silent film. Future speaks. Okay, yes, it's through title card, but in all the movies that this could happen in, he speaks in a silent film. Even in the other movies where Chris's future annoyed me because you could see his face and whatever. Like, okay, the 2019 version, he communicates in some way. He doesn't verbally communicate, he physically communicates, but like beyond the pointing. But otherwise, even if you see their face, they are silent the whole damn time. In the silent fucking film, he fucking speaks. I spent probably 10 minutes crashing out and then having to calm down because of this. Like, I literally had to pause the movie before I could continue. I'm just gonna grab the book 1 second. I'll BRB. Okay. Got my big ass copy of my 5 novels of Charles Dickens. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? The last of the spirits. Okay. He felt that it was tall and stately when it came beside him, and that its mysterious presence filled him with solemn dread. Okay, good so far. I feel like that's what's conveyed when Scrooge first experiences him in this film. He knew no more, for the spirit neither spoke nor moved. I am in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come, said Scrooge. The spirit answered not, but pointed onward with his hand. Scrooge does all the talking, trying to figure out what's going on with this ghost through the entire stave. So, like, were they high? I mean, it's after World War I, where you can get cocaine and heroin from the doctor. So maybe. And it sucks because so much of Future was actually good otherwise for one of these early adaptations. And like, they had to ruin it by making him speak. Just have the title card say, "Oh, are you the ghost of Christmas Future?" Done. Not that hard. Instead of, "I am the ghost of Christmas," like, off. If you want to check this one out for posterity, then fine. But otherwise, narp. Narp, narp, narp. Don't waste your time. Spend that half an hour doing something else. What I wanted to do was round this one out with the 1928 version of Scrooge. It seems to be the first film adaptation of the story with sound. There was a radio play of Scrooge in 1926, so it wasn't the first recording of an adaptation with sound, but it looks like it was the first film one with synced sound. So that would have been cool, you know? Ended on that. Unfortunately, this is where we snuff out past slide and move on because when I searched again, it still looks like it's lost to time. Hopefully one day it's found because that would be awesome to see. So that's all of the surviving ones from the earliest days of film. Was it intentional that my feelings on these movies lined up perfectly with the vibes of the things Scrooge sees with Christmas Past? Nope. That was a happy accident that I realized when I was putting all of this together. I was like, oh, I can make my transitions follow the section of the story. That's awesome. Let's run with it. If you want some extra Yuletide splendor, check out my video attempts of making eggnog back in 2023. It had been like, 10, 15 years since the last time I had made it. It was my bonus chapter for that year. It does include a copy of the recipe if you want to try it out for yourself. And that should be available now on the YouTubes. I'll put the description I'll put the link in the description below. Words. Ha! A lot of time and effort goes into what I do for my videos, along with my writing and crafting efforts. I'm actually in the middle of a big, long-term crafting project that I started last month, so that is gonna be. But I am a one-woman show here, so please, head to my page and buy me a coffee. Times are hard, so I put my membership at $1 a month right now, and you can always do a random one-off support. And of course, my own tale with some spooky elements is on there as well. You can buy the order in my shop there or on Etsy. Links will be in the description below. And as always, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, ring the bell so you don't miss upcoming updates that I have in store. So until next time, pals, blessed be.